Today's podcast is brought to you by drinkers like you. To help support the show, visit patreon.com/haveadrinkshow.
Buckle up, gang. It's time for Tiki Drinks 2, Electric Boogaloo. We got deeper into the culture of the tiki drinks this time, though. How those tiki bars started popping up, and how the drink lasted long enough to see the trend level come and go, and then come and go again. So make sure you have your Hawaiian shirt from the last episode, and join us as we have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink, the show where you learn along with us about what you drink. I'm Brittany Lee Walker.
I'm Justin Frazier.
I'm Christopher Walker.
And I'm Casey Price.
Howdy, hey, everybody.
Hey, howdy, hey.
Howdy ho there, neighboritos.
It's been a couple weeks. What's everyone been up to?
Oh,
Well, we know that we had some pre-show stuff on things that we've been watching, at least.
Yes, if only we could get all of us together to have some long-form post-show discussions about Ted Lasso.
Nope.
I'm just like, Casey, where are you at on Ted Lasso? Because we didn't actually check that.
I'm mostly caught up. That's usually how it is. I think I haven't seen Wednesday's episode, but other than that, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't want to set up expectations for you to kind of be like, oh, man, it was okay, but it was real fun.
It was real fun. It was beard after dark fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it looked like in the I don't know, it's not an emoji, whatever the art is.
The thumbnail, because it's all they give you before the next episode. Yeah.
It looked like it was like an in the bar type of episode, like when they went to the bar the first time.
Yeah.
It's in a bar. It's in a canal. It's on bikes. It's
Amsterdam, if that sums it up.
Yeah.
It's in a red light district.
Yeah.
And it's also none of what you think it is.
Nah.
Nah.
But it was good. And then we saw the Mario movie for the second time because that's where we're at.
Had to take our buddies Ian and Aaron and let them go watch it with the unbridled optimism and joy of a 4-year-old. And we were not the only ones. That theater was packed to the gills with
there were kids
5 and under, and they were all. I mean, you could it sounded like there was a kid with a boulder rolling it around up behind us. It was crazy.
Just waiting to hear that you say like you hear in unison, "Oh no, Mario!"
If only that were the case. Because these are the kinds of kids that were just like, doing the normal kid thing.
We were talking, and we're going to get into Casey's part of this story because that's where we were when Brittany's like, I need to hit record because this is all too good. So I'm sitting there like, we keep hearing this thump. And I was like, what is that? And I look down and see it is a kid because we were in an AMC. So it's real nice, electric recliners and everything. And the kid is like putting the thing into full recline and then jumping on the legs of the recliner and breaking it. So he falls all the way through to the ground.
Wow. I did not see that.
He was doing it. Oh, that's what the big thump was.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a bad person. And the first thing I thought of when I heard of a child jumping on that and breaking it and falling to the ground, because I know it's not a far enough fall to do any real damage, is to go, good.
Yeah.
Well, serves him right.
Did anybody just get the kids on the escalator again thing in their head?
Well, that was us beforehand.
That's what it feels like.
That's us. Only, I will say pre-show, it's like, oh, let's get down there early so we can let Emmett run around and get his energy out. No, we get there and always now on the like giant 60-foot screen, they're always showing SpongeBob. But we won't let him watch it here. So he walks in, he's like, SpongeBob, and sits down. And we're just like, I swear to God, you're supposed to be running around and burning off energy, and now you just want to sit and watch this. So we go and get beers and then ride the escalators with our beers.
Well, and then
I'm like, you know what? Screw it.
Emmett and I got on the train where some of my beer spilled on the very bumpy piece when we went outside. Not okay.
The fact that now that I've seen the video of you in the train, which is very much like a children's train, but I mean, adults can ride it too, but like it's a children, like it's child size. With a beer in your hand as you're going just cracks me up at this point.
That feels like it should be like a Will Ferrell character, like drunk sitting in the thing, like, it's just sitting there, yeah, go, woo!
Should have seen me in it a couple of weeks ago. Like it was, the thing was like, I'm sure it had a bad lean to it on the side I was sitting. And if I just stuck my arms out of the windows, it would have looked like the train car was with its own limbs.
I'm picturing either of you with like your knees like up to your chins, sitting in this little thing, just like,
So no, the train cars are meant to hold like 6+ little kids, and then me and Emmett got in there, and he basically had to sit in my lap. It was just like, nope, occupied.
See, we were. I had my legs stretched out on the other, like in the little car thing that we were in. So it was just me and Emmett, and like I was stretched out. He's sliding all over the place, and I'm like, of course. Although he was also being extra about it, so that's whatever. But yeah, I don't think it wasn't as bad for me because I'm not all the tallness.
But yeah, that's my Saturdays have now devolved to, well, I'm happy that there's so many alcohol options for us at Newport on the Levee. But I'm always like, let's go get a beverage, because Emmett just wants to ride the escalator. And I'm like, we're going to go get a beverage and we're going to get drunk while we ride the escalators down for the next hour.
But then it sucked because when we finally went up to the movie, the escalator was down. So we were just walking. And then like, I was not prepared for this.
But I was so beyond excited. I, in all earnest, got to deliver the line. I just turned and looked over and I was like, escalator is temporarily stairs. Sorry for the convenience.
We apologize. You can still get up there.
Because usually if it's not working, they have to close it off. But no, it was, I'm like, all right, we are temporarily stairs.
Yeah,
which was great. So, but yeah, that was Emmett. Even though second time, he was still like going through all the motions as though it's the first time he's seen it. As just it is the height of entertainment. He was jumping, going crazy.
That'll be his Star Wars.
So no,
it'll be a trilogy, and then it'll be another 12 movies after that.
Speaking of getting him into Star Wars,
it'll be the Baby Mario movies.
Yep.
And then
so we started out of nowhere. I was trying to we're thinking about how to get him into Star Wars, and I was like, "F it, let's put it on Rebels
again."
We've
tried many times.
Last time it didn't work, and I think I watched like 4 episodes without him. And then today we put it on Rebels, and it held his attention through an episode and a half straight of him just watching. And then after that, he went and got his lightsaber and was just like beating me all around the condo. And it's like, I'm like, he's going to be a Sith Lord, because he was slapping me in the back hard. Like you could hear it just like pow on my back. And then I would be like, dude, stop. And then he would run off and be like, until next time.
He has a villain catchphrase.
Yeah. Like seriously.
I'm concerned. That's been like that for a bit now.
He would even go, until next time, and run off to his room.
See, he's watching Mario because he's waiting to get to the character he most identifies with, which is Wario.
Yeah, pretty much. No,
he loves Waluigi, actually.
Waluigi's his jam.
And he's really into all the Koopalings and Dry Bones and the Shy Guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mario, you watched the Mario movie, Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about as much as that. It's about as much as that you can say. You used as much of the word yes as you saw of the movie.
That was 2/3 of the word, which is what amount of the movie I saw.
No, I think didn't you guys establish it was like he saw maybe 1/3?
Maybe a third.
Oh, I saw a third of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've,
Where's Donkey Kong? He's
Let's-
definitely in very soon. Very soon.
So usually when someone falls asleep at movies, it's like, oh yeah, I've been there. So tired, you can't keep your eyes open at the movies. It's all dark and cozy. No, let's go ahead and educate everyone on Casey.
we were taking the kids, my wife and I, and the sister-in-law. We're all going to the movies.
It's important that there are chaperones.
Yes. And so
Someone had to change Casey's diaper.
the kids, wanted to see Mario, and so I was forbidden to see Mario until this past weekend, when we could all go. Couldn't catch it early. So we go out to eat. I have a couple drinks there. We go from the restaurant to the movie theater.
What constitutes a couple drinks at the restaurant?
Couple like LIDs.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a beer at the movie theater.
What size beer?
The 23 ounce. I mean, you don't want to have to go back. But it was Modelo, so that kind of gives it a little bit of at least
You didn't
it's
get a
not like-
barrel aged.
Yeah, let me have that 23-year-old Kentucky barrel aged ale at 9% or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm
With
gonna need
2
this filled
limes.
up with KBS.
Yeah.
If only the movie theaters had KBS. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. KBS is everywhere now.
It's true.
So go in and we get the kids settled in. It's the reclining seats. You get relaxed, and I have my little Dippin' Dots, and then drift off to sleep a little bit.
A little bit.
I'm picturing them falling out of his hand as like his children look by, and the last words they hear from their father before he sleeps is "Rosebud."
So my initial reaction to hearing this is, now wait a second. There's a difference between getting all comfy cozy and being a little too exhausted from the week and taking a little nappy nap at the movies and passing out drunk. The latter is definitely the movie.
This gets me to a thought. I'm always looking like, where's a good place someone can go and just like fall asleep for 2 to 3 hours, take a nap, and nobody look at them. I'm always like in the airport or something. I'm like, I've got a layover that's way too long. I need to just take a nap somewhere. I'm going to look at movie theaters now. Just pop out. There should be, if it's in a normal city, there should be a movie theater not far away from the airport. And
Sometimes in the airport. Actually.
yeah, exactly. And so go to a movie and sleep for 2.5, 3 hours.
Someone's bound to kick you out of there. They've got to clean up after the movie lets out.
That's right.
Yeah, there's your wake up call.
So, for $12, you've got a place to sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours.
We got to hit the airport bar first. Make sure you get.
Oh yeah, that's usually what's happened. Like you get that little relaxed feeling, and then you're like, man, I wish I could lay down somewhere.
Well, what did you think about the first third of the movie?
It's good. I like the way that it really kind of set up the family aspect a lot better than the other Mario movie did.
No, the other Mario movie is a classic. It's cinema history. Bob Hoskins as Mario is the greatest thing that's ever happened. And knowing that he was just like blitzed out of his skull on scotch for the entirety of that film.
I was gonna say, look, I was gonna say it's unfair to compare that because I was gonna say like he puts in as much. Now he's not putting a lot of effort. He's just there. Look, like drunk 10% effort. Bob Hoskins is still better than most other actors you're gonna find.
You'll never see Bob Hoskins, Anthony Hopkins. Like no, it wasn't Anthony.
The
Hopkins.
casting was great.
Who else is in it?
What's
his name from Hoosiers?
I can picture him. Doesn't mean anything. He's in a lot of stuff too. Oh god, I gotta look this up.
Yeah.
But the casting was great. That's not really the point. The story went off the rails. We even watched a documentary on that.
All the extras were actually strippers from nearby towns that they hired for like next to nothing because
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper.
Okay, yes.
And John Leguizamo.
Yeah, that makes sense when you consider the grittiness of that movie. Like, kind of fits the motif.
Yeah.
they're in Dino Hatton because the man part in Manhattan talks about how it's a man.
But so it's great how the two, like, it's essentially the same story. It's like, no, it's a parallel universe that exists next to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just it's literally through a pipe or through a wall away, and that's it. And they even have like the same like sequence.
How else are you going to explain the Mario? Why two plumbers end up in this world filled with mushrooms?
Yeah, which they do play that up too. Like the best thing is just like apparently Mario flipping hates mushrooms. Like they're trying to eat them on pasta in the beginning of the movie, and he's just like, ugh. And like when he finds out that that's the power up and the mushroom king, he's like, "Are you serious right now?" It's like disgusting. Like he almost I think he throws up at one point.
Yeah, because it's great because it's during the I Need a Hero montage, which is the music choices in the new movie are just
so
chef's kiss. It's perfect. But they're playing, he's going through the test level and it's playing I Need a Hero, and he's just like scarfing these mushrooms constantly, and then it shows them like leaning over the edge, obviously heaving, and then suddenly he goes broop, broop, broop. It shows him shrink down as he throws up.
And Peach is like, there.
By the way, spoiler alerts.
I mean, that's not much of a spoiler.
No, I'm saying like just everything that like we basically went through a lot of the movie. I'm just like,
yeah, it's only an hour and a half. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, people know the story generally.
Did you see the one from the 90s? Then you've got a good grip on this one. Only put Jack Black instead of Dennis Hopper.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the Mario movie already, but yeah, we had to just get into the story of like the second time around and Casey's interesting take.
Blackout drunk.
What? I do remember waking. I do remember waking up for the Power Star portion, and I remember
it's like, oh, it's too loud. Someone shut this theater down.
I did like the way they composed that song.
Oh God, yes.
With the but it like really had like a totally different feel to it, but it still had the original undertone.
The whole soundtrack is sick.
I'm picturing your children have like taken off their jackets and put it on you because they just like, oh, Dad's asleep. Let's make sure he's comfy.
That's it. I picture them because our child literally doing jumping jacks in the seat, and that's what I picture. Like, no, that was just Frank. He's just like jumping on Casey, and Casey's just like out cold, just like. And the kids are bouncing.
You've got twins. Like at a certain point, I assume like Hop on Pop is just like just a nice, gentle, relax massage as you're trying to sleep.
Yeah. Did I mention the after Easter with the eggs?
No.
Thing? So this was not passing out. It was just me like falling asleep because of weariness. Ashley works for long stretches at a time, and so it's the kids are here with me, and so I get a little tired sometimes. So I fell asleep with both of them in the living room, and I thought we were all just watching some TV or watching something. And I think this was like, I don't know. It was after probably a Sunday because my mother had gotten them, and they had done Easter egg hunts at school. And also at my mother's house. And so they had these like 2 huge Easter baskets full of fake eggs. I wake up and they're empty. And they have hidden all of these eggs around the house. There were at least 160 eggs. We knew that they had at least 80 apiece. There were 160 eggs. I can't put on a pair of shoes today without finding an egg in it.
I mean, you got to give it to them on the creativity.
Like anytime I find a new pair of shoes that I'm going to wear, okay, I'm done wearing these. I'm going to switch to this different kind. It's 4 or 5 eggs. Like the boots were full with eggs.
I mean, they're the obvious hiding spot. Yeah.
Were they like floating in the fish tank? And
we've found them in like food cabinets. They've been in like back behind pictures on the entertainment center, like at the bottom of the blanket basket.
Are these real eggs or are these like the plastic?
They're the plastic ones. Okay. Luckily,
thank God.
I mean, kind of. Thank God, you'd be able to find real eggs when they
Yeah.
start smelling them.
At a certain point.
Yeah.
Don't be worried when you start finding eggs like on top of the cabinets, and you're
The
like,
hell did
wait.
You start
Oh,
going
what's
like
happening there?
that. At that point, you realize the twins have just lived out a Rugrats experience while you were asleep. Like they just had a whole 30-minute adventure.
Yeah.
Your
I'm
little
like
Phil
Grandpa.
and Lils, yeah, just watching weird alien porn while the kids are.
Yes. Grandpa's gonna watch this. That was the weirdest thing.
I would always like slightly like nudge him or something, and he would kind of start waking up. He'd just go, "Oh yeah." You're like, what? Regrets was so inappropriate.
Oh.
All right, I think it's time we get to an episode.
Oh wait, what were you up to?
It's time we get to an episode.
Bob's like, I don't want to talk about it.
We're not that drunk. Cheeky bastards! We're not that drunk! We're not that drunk! We're not that drunk!
After last time, I was really curious. Like, I don't know what sounder we're gonna get this week.
I didn't
Really?
really either, to be fair.
Yeah, but
I was like, which one is it? Because I still haven't replaced the one that I removed, and I almost hit something else entirely. Look,
It's fine. You're good. It was just thought it was fun because I was like, it was a moment of legitimate excitement because I was just curious about what was going to happen.
I almost hit the everybody's drunk thing. That could have also worked out.
For sure.
Tiki drinks are strong. All right. Speaking of, let's get into a little bit of this topic. When Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gant
That would get-
Hunt.
Because Gant's hard.
was born in 1907, the Model T Ford had not yet been introduced. Pepperidge Farm remembers. There were only 45 states in the U.S. and alcohol was legal. By the time Ernest was moving into his teenage years, all of that had changed. Andy Dufresne was my friend.
Crawled through a mile of
Just realizing like how my voice was just slowly going from Pepperidge Farms to
Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
Mississippi.
That happens.
MISSISSIPPI.
Greatest Morgan Freeman thing I've ever heard. Sorry, another aside. I know we just got started. I apologize. Frank Caliento. Is that what his name was? Who does all the impressions? He does a ton of Morgan Freeman, and the greatest thing ever is him reading off breakfast cereals in Morgan Freeman's voice, or reading off 80s wrestlers' names. Rowdy.
Piper.
The British Bulldog.
The Sheik. Ernest is probably the most influential individual in Tiki culture, but you probably don't know him by that name. Ernest Drunk Tiki.
Let's dig Jim Varney up. Get this going.
Yeah, to see this thing now, I'm picturing like someone in a tiki bar, and he just like keeps looking straight into the camera, going, "You know what I mean, Vern?"
Kentucky treasure right there.
We worked at the same theater.
Mm.
Oh, not at the same time. It was
right.
10 years between. But
Right. During Prohibition, he had spent some time working for his uncle's import-export business, running boats from New Orleans to the Caribbean.
We all know what that means.
I was going to say, yeah, they imported and exported, and those boats had to run fast. It probably been more than likely this business was a front for more illicit imports, given the time, and Ernest most definitely had access to some of the best rums in the Caribbean throughout his time working with his uncle. Like most of Ernest's life, it's difficult to separate what was the truth from what would eventually become the character who many knew him as. During his teen years and early 20s, Ernest traveled, took odd jobs. He was scared stupid at certain intervals. And
Look, that's all I'm picturing. You keep saying it. We just say Ernest because he has a very long name. But I'm just like, nope. I'm just seeing Ernest P. Worrell.
I'm just picturing that hat, the little blue and white. Yes. God, it's been so long since I've seen an Ernest movie.
You introduce the kids to Ernest.
Right.
Oh.
God, that's a family movie night.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to scar them is watch Worrell Family Reunion. He did one where it was before the character took off, and it was just
he
like
was still doing like car commercials, more or less.
Yeah, but it's
local
all
TV.
It's like the rest of Ernest's family, and they're all like trailer park train wreck. It is. It wasn't meant for like family. That's for sure. It's more along the lines like Jesco White.
Yeah. Anyway, like most of Ernest's life, it's sorry, I already read that bit. After he did his go ahead. Sorry.
Like, this isn't written here, but it may help a little bit later. So he was given the option at 16 of, here's your college money, go use it for college, or go just travel. And so
decided walkabout's the way to go.
Yeah, and so he took the walkabout route at his grandfather's urgings. Like, his grandfather was like, you need to do this. And through the time, I didn't write a whole lot here because it's not really known. He claims that he would travel all through the South Pacific and the Caribbean and the Polynesia and all these places, but it's kind of up in the air whether he actually did or not.
This is reminding me, there's been a recent Modern Rogue episode that had come out, and it's about Frank Abagnale, like the Catch Me If You Can guy.
Oh, yeah. And how they're recently now just going, he's a con man. Can we believe any of this?
Just like, oh, yeah, he didn't do any of it. How can you tell? The time frames he's giving for all this stuff before he went into his legitimate business, he was in prison. He had 14 months when he was not in jail of some form or another.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing, too. The entirety of the movie that he gets rights for.
Still made a good movie, though.
It made a great movie.
Good movie, good story. But
I love that movie. But it doesn't detract from the movie a bit. But you're just like, you stop and think, you're like, why would you have trusted any of these fantastical stories from a legit con man?
Yeah. So, sorry. It's just the idea of like, how much can you trust? It's like, apparently nothing. I can't trust anything anymore. But watching that and too much Casual Criminalist anymore. I trust nothing.
Oh, man. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, we'll go down a tangent we don't need to get down. We need to get through this episode. So Ernest worked in restaurants in Los Angeles, China. Los Angeles' Chinatown. Did some bootlegging of his own and parked cars as a valet for upscale functions. I like the idea of doing both at the same time.
Yeah, he was taking the valet car to make a drop.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, I don't know about the drop, but like, he definitely used one for the other.
Mm-hmm.
And made friends along the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's some straight up George Remus stuff right there.
Yeah. He made connections in the socialite and Hollywood circles through his last job, befriending major stars and producers of the time. I'm thinking of the Dana Carvey bit about Jimmy Stewart and so just moving along down to Mulholland, and I'm just picturing him like, no, don't worry, Mr. Stewart, we'll just get you on out of here. You just stay in the back there and keep your head down. Anyway, during this time, the entertainment industry in the U.S. had piqued an interest for shows about the South Pacific. Elvis Goes Hawaiian.
A little bit later.
Elvis's. Oh yeah, that wasn't
that would be a little bit later, but yeah, I'm just because
I actually mentioned that in the doc.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's probably the second wave of the around the time we decided, like, what if we made this set of islands we took over from a banana company after we helped them illegally kick out the proper monarchs and government. What if we make them a state? That'll make up for everything, right? Yeah. Having traveled some, Ernest was able to provide not only his expertise, but also a catalog of various souvenirs to these films, and adding a slight sense of authenticity. In 1933, Ernest was 26 years old, and Prohibition was ending. he had some Hollywood connections. There's no way one of them is not Fatty Arbuckle, right?
Did not see that one, but would not be surprised.
Mhm.
Man, that's so talking. Was it a casual criminalist or a biographics?
Biographics, probably about
on-
how
Just say Simon at this point, really.
Yeah, one of the Simon videos. Well, it paints it in a different light as to which one it was. But yeah, when he did a whole. Oh, it wasn't a giant episode. I think it's only like a half hour talking about Arbuckle. But you're like, man, he had some demons. Holy crap!
Anyway, bootlicking is no longer a career option since it was going to be legal. And all he really had his knowledge was his knowledge of rum, island culture, and people. Naturally, he opened a bar. He called it Don Beachcombers. Hey, we heard that a lot in the last episode. The bar was by no means lavish. It was nestled in the corner of a hotel and sat 20 people. It was decorated with various flotsam and which washed up from a beach, old fishing nets, ropes, and wrecked boat wood. This sounds like the traditional tiki bar, though. Like this is the tiki bar from which all draw their.
Yes.
This was the tiki bar that comes that stepped out of the primordial booze.
This is your, this is the primordial tiki bar. Like, you don't get velvet pictures of Elvis just yet.
Mhm.
Those come later, but like this is where it all comes from. This is the exact look, because there were cocktail bars that focused on tropical drinks before.
Yeah.
They did that, but it wasn't nearly as specific as the tiki look and feel.
Mhm.
Look, I want to see this now because there's a I don't know what to call it, like Kmart Con Tiki that's set up at Newport on the Levee.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to see them do this only with crap that's washing down the Ohio River.
Oh God!
Well, I felt this drum that was leaking orange ooze.
You've got a couple oil drums. The bar is just a couple of corpses.
The entire building is just a train car that they pulled out of the river recently, and
Breweries are this. It just dawned on me.
yeah, they
Yeah.
are. They're just like, well, we found this crap sitting here when we bought the building, so we decided to incorporate it.
Yes. The urinal is a cut in half keg. It's all that same kitsch,
Yeah.
or will be in 15 years.
Yeah. Well, his drinks were very good and fairly inexpensive, costing in today's dollars $5 to $6 in downtown Hollywood. I'd have to assume that's 50 cents for a Mai Tai at that point. Okay,
A quarter. Yep.
Yeah. Not far off.
And it would not be a Mai Tai. Mai Tais were later than this.
The Mai Tai has always been, Casey. They just didn't have the name yet.
This would be
Never contradict me again. No, I'm kidding.
this would be zombie territory. 1934 was the zombies creation year, so that's probably in that realm.
Almost.
In your head.
I almost made I almost got the stuff for a zombie today, and then I was kind of going down the ingredient list. I was like, no, it's gonna take too much legwork to go get all this. Let's find something cheap and fast.
I sent that picture earlier. Did you see it?
Which picture earlier?
We'll talk in the after show.
Yeah. Is it it's not the drink that we looked at and went, what on God's name is this?
Could possibly.
Oh, that one. Yeah, never mind. I see it. Yeah. All right. So, Ernest Bar became a local watering hole for some of Hollywood's elite. It's been visited by Charlie Chaplin, the Marx Brothers, Bing Crosby, Clark Gable, and there was a claim that Howard Hughes hit and killed a pedestrian on his way home on the night after the bar. Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, that's. I'm going to take that one as 100% fact because that's a pretty Howard Hughes thing.
I imagine that he did it, and Harpo Marx comes out from the thing, looks down at the dead body, and just goes.
So, I did a little bit more research here.
And in fact, it wasn't that. It was Bing Crosby beating someone to death with a sack of oranges.
Nope. It is probably impossible for Roscoe Arbuckle to have ever drank at Don's restaurant.
Oh, I
Not
meant
a
that he
tiny
knew him. I
He
meant
may
that he
have-
knew him from valeting. Not
Well, and that's kind of the time period. Like 6 months before he opened the restaurant, moved from being a valet to going into the restaurant business.
Mhm.
It was when Arbuckle died. There's like a
okay.
6 months period there where between the two, but he very well may have met him as a valet. But I wanted to see about what time frame that would have been. So yeah.
Okay. There's a quote here. If you can't get to paradise, I'll bring it to you, was the phrase that Ernest would say. It was also during this time of the Great Depression when travel was an unthinkable luxury, especially to some exotic far-off island. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice thing. Like, you're like, oh, I can't afford, I really don't want to spend the money to go on that trip. Let's just bring the island a little closer to home. Let's.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, they're in coconuts, you say. Little umbrellas.
You got 2 empty ass of coconuts and you're banging them together.
With the bar being called Don Beachcombers, many just assumed his name was what it was on the door. So Ernest officially changed his name to Don Beach.
As you do.
Love it.
Sure. The name most people would today recognize. His name change may have also been a way to help distance himself from his previous bootlegging reputation now that he had gone legit. It's also during this time that Don met his future wife, a waitress from a nearby tea room named Cora Sunny, Irene Sund. Real afraid I was about to say from his establishment. I was like, oh no. Cora was resourceful and more business savvy than Don. She was a school teacher in Minnesota before moving to LA. With the help of Cora, Don was able to move out of the bar hotel and across the road into his own space. Due to post-prohibition alcohol laws, however, he would need to serve food. So he returned to his roots, working in Chinatown restaurants and incorporated American Chinese food into the concept.
So
It-
this is, sorry.
This is literally where we get the menu from the Polynesian resort.
It wasn't until you guys were talking about that a little while ago that I put that together, because I was like, wait, no, the name they said was
So
that's in the episode.
He's the culprit. He's why
So
I associate the two.
yes, probably like 70% there, because like they would say, okay, we're doing Chinese food, but we're going to put a little island flair on it. Then they like put it in a pineapple and
There's
call
like
it
pineapples everywhere.
fusion. Like at that point, it's Asian fusion cuisine,
Mhm.
which is just basically a little extra decoration. Put a flower on it or whatever.
Put it in an $80 ceramic tiki mug. And
Yeah, at this point, it is much more classic Chinese food mixed with, or classic, Americanized Chinese food mixed with just really good drinks. The drinks kind of are there, and the Chinese food is the back end of it. It's just we got to have this, so here you go. But then it sort of makes a switch in later years, not only with this restaurant but with some of the others.
so is there a place where I can get a whole bao bun as a Bloody Mary garnish?
Probably.
I need that to be a thing. We were having a discussion earlier. I was like, why are there no restaurants around here where I can get bao buns? Like, what is it? She's like, probably because we don't go to good Chinese restaurants. Act.
There's a place down here that's what they sell. They just do buns.
I may be there tomorrow. I may have to check them out.
Oh man.
There's if you're gonna be there tomorrow, there's a Void's doing a thing.
With my mother.
Well,
Never
who
mind. Then.
is
Yeah, no, never mind. You
Yep.
said enough.
All right. Well, Don used his experience of island hopping and his collections of various bric-a-brac and movie set pieces to decorate the place with an island look similar to what we would call tiki today.
I'm desperately trying to like stop the Nightmare Before Christmas from like burning into my head from the word bric-a-brac.
wow. I didn't
It's
even
in-
go
Yep. This is where we get the modern day look and feel of a tiki bar with its cluttered appearance, bamboo, thatch decor of flaming torches, rattan furniture, rattan, flower lays, and brightly colored fabrics that looked like imagery out of the popular movies that were helping to fuel the desires of the average American to travel to the Pacific. The poo-poo platter.
That yeah.
Bacon wrapped chestnuts are both inventions of Don's. Wow. With his intention of dressing up classic Cantonese dishes with some exotic flair.
That as Casey was kind of describing some of that, it's like, oh, the Chinese food, and like this explains how the poo-poo platter became, popped up into existence suddenly. It's like, all right, this makes sense to me now.
Yep.
It's the culprit. Don even went as far as to install a sprinkler on the metal roof of the building. When it was getting late and patrons were on their way out the door, Don would turn on the sprinkler to make it appear as if it was raining outside, leading to a call of one more round while the rain passed.
Well done, sir.
I mean, I am so impressed.
This guy is just like the greatest grifter that ever existed. I swear to God.
How is this not more of a thing? How is this not something people going like, bar's starting to clear out. You know what? I guess one more won't hurt. Like, we could wait out the rain a little bit. Yeah.
No, we live in a society of alcoholics now where they're like, no, it's 2 a.m. You got to get your asses out of here. In 1936, a man by the name of Victor Bergeron. Bergeron. No.
I think we were saying Bergeron before, and then we
Bergeron?
couldn't get Tom Bergeron out of our heads, and it was all downhill from there.
Well, we're just going to go
I
with
got
that.
Bergeron. I don't know.
Victor Bergeron ate at Don's restaurant. Victor owned a restaurant of his own in San Francisco named Tiki Drinks. When he saw what Don was doing, he grew interested and started investigating how Don was doing it.
He decided to take that business model, put it on a cookie sheet, put it in the oven, and then watched it shrink down. So Hinky Dinks became
Shrinky Dinks.
Oh, sorry. Okay, this is also like the horrible name reminds me of. I'm not gonna say it, but the name of the bar attended in the most recent Ted Lasso episode
I don't remember the name of it.
that Colin went to.
I know that's the one you're talking about. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna say, think about it for just a second.
That wasn't wait.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah, no. I know the name, but I was also thinking about like the act that was coming later. It's the one that I'm thinking of.
Okay.
He wanted to take the idea and incorporate it into his own place. He was eventually kicked out and banned from the restaurant because they saw he's trying to steal the grift, and they said no.
They called him a rope sitter or something like that, because even after he got banned, he would stand outside on the sidewalk where the rope was, and like as people were allowed in, he would stand out there and like try to get them to do things for him, and
like rubberneck.
Yeah, like just see what was going on and see things.
Gosh,
Wow.
This wasn't uncommon for Don. His place was exotic and different. Ingredients we are familiar with today were not common in his time. We are able to get anything we want today by ordering it online, and many of the items used in Don's bar were secret. He would even create pre-mixed syrups and combinations of liquors to keep his bar staff from knowing what was in the drink. That's pretty illegal today.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, what's in here? A little bit of how's your father, and you just shut up and don't ask too many questions.
When asked what was in a drink, for example, the 4 Filipino bartenders, known as the 4 boys, would say something like a 3 count of mix 4 and 2 count of mix 6 and a dash of mix 8, never knowing what was actually in the mixes.
Wow.
God.
My mind can't get around how illegal that would be today.
Listen, it should just basically say on the menu, hey, if you got a nut allergy, just don't eat this.
Yeah. Let us know.
That's not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the dash of mix, 3 counts of mix 4, 2 counts of mix 6, and a dash of Rufalin.
I mean, yeah.
Don had a long-standing relationship with his Filipino bartenders. When he was parking cars and working in the fresh vegetable market, he would crash with them. Racism was rampant, and white bartenders would always get the job before anyone else. For their kindness, Don told them when he got his own place, they would have a job, and he kept his word.
That's good.
And even as you go through Tiki's culture and Tiki's history, Filipino men usually were absolutely critical in the industry as a whole. Like there were many of the individuals that started out as barbacks, more or less, in what today's terminology would be, and made their way up to executive management in these restaurant chains.
Well, Don's wife became integral to the growth of the business, and she eventually took over most of the management duties. Their personal relationship, however, did not last long, divorcing in 1940. They remained business partners at the time, however, and Cora took over the business, expanding it. The first major expansion was opening a location in Chicago the same year they divorced. Ouch. To open the location, Cora likely took out a loan from the mob.
As you do.
It's
With Chicago.
Chicago.
Yep. In 1942, when America was entering WW2, Don enlisted in the Army Air Corps while Cora stayed home and continued to manage and expand the business.
Wait. How old was he?
I'm not picturing spring chicken here.
Yeah, born in 1907. This is 19 like he
He's still in service age. He's in his 30s. I mean, he's not prime.
Yeah, he is. We're putting you nowhere near the front.
Yeah, he was injured in a U-boat attack on his ship.
Take it back. They put him on the front
After recovery, Don spent the rest of his military career working as the operator of officer rest and recreation centers. He even created some new Air Corps themed cocktails named as a result, including the QB cooler and the test pilot. A B-26 bomber even bore a Don the Beachcomber Driftwood sign. All right. And likeness painted over onto its fuselage during the war. Don was awarded a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for his service.
For alcohol above and beyond service.
Yeah.
Here's your Bronze Star.
Don returned home in 1945 to a country thirsty for anything Polynesian and South Pacific. There was a growing nationwide pop culture explosion of South Pacific culture. This is basically what we were talking about earlier, what we think of when it comes to this.
That's what we remember. There was one before it, but this is the one that we remember.
Yeah, driven by, not from firsthand knowledge.
No, but whenever we see our parents and grandparents talk about it, this is the one that they went through.
We're picturing like those 50s, 60s beach movies, the all the tikis and the surfing and
which is why
episode
we got tiki, then it went away, and then like there's this ebb and flow in the whole tiki process or the tiki culture world.
Yeah, it was mainly driven by returning soldiers enticed by the people and flavors they experienced. Yeah, that's how we're going to say it. Enticed by the people and flavors that they experienced while in the Pacific Theater.
Well, also think of it as, someone out in Kansas coming back to the States and going, look, I had pineapple, y'all, and I need more.
That's how I feel.
I say, can we just go back to that point? And it wasn't long before this that coming home from vacation in Europe, you always brought a pineapple, and that's when it became. That's why you see pineapples on gates. There'll be like big iron pineapples, or there'll be a big stone pineapple on a pedestal, and people started doing that because to show you had been somewhere, that was tropical. You would literally bring home a pineapple and like post it out front of your home and be like, "Nah, dog."
And now
look at this fruit. This weird ass fruit.
And now that's how you tell if people are swingers.
Yeah.
Knock 3 times on the pineapple if you want.
Jesus. Oh, well, in 1945, Don signed control of the restaurants over to Cora, retaining only a role as a consultant and figurehead as part of the settlement. So he basically became Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
As part of the settlement, Beach was not allowed to open a Don the Beachcomber within the United States. Some believe he may have been forced out in part by the mob. At the Chicago, Don the Beachcomber had become entangled with mafia associates.
Mhm.
Oh, Lord. Interestingly enough, there was a tropical place which was not in the U.S., but was close enough in 1945, Hawaii. Don moved to the territory and restarted his life there.
Oh, poor fella. He's only got about like 10 years before he can't, whatever he's opened, it is no longer his.
Yep.
Mm. Yeah, so we mentioned someone earlier that we need to pick back up with. Victor Bergeron. We're going to keep saying Bergeron because we don't know.
Tom Bergeron.
Yes, from America's Funniest Home Videos. After getting kicked out of Don's Tiki Bar in the 1940s, Victor went back to San Francisco with a new concept in his mind. His original restaurant, Tiki Drinks, worst in the world, was based around a potbelly stove and over in his brother in a house his brother-in-law owned. Okay.
It's just my poor writing.
I was like, wait.
There was a potbelly stove. They were making shrinky dinks.
Oh, well, it sounds like it.
So he got like $700 from his mother, plus
shrunk that down to $20,
plus a potbelly stove and an oven, and his brother or brother-in-law's like wooden home, and that's where he started this first restaurant.
Wow. Okay, gotcha. So the Trader Vic's history doesn't really make mention of the beachcomber influence. He instead says his time exploring the South Seas was his main influence.
South Seas being what he called outside of Don Beachcomber's bar.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's what it happens when you don't get specific. Victor Bergeron didn't really have the backlog the Don Beach did when it came to the number of knickknacks and South Pacific Polynesian decorations.
What about his patty wax?
That.
How about don't
Bergeron a bone?
Yeah.
This led to Victor making more trades for these items. If you came in with a Polynesian themed knickknack, he may trade you a drink or two for that item. This led to Victor's tiki name of Trader Vic. This name also was what led to the second of the major tiki restaurants to be founded, Trader Vic's. The restaurant is known for its invention, the Mai Tai, in 1944, a classic tiki cocktail. While there's no doubt the name of the cocktail came from Trader Vic's, Don Beach claimed the recipe was based on his own QB Cooler cocktail. It wasn't until 1949 a hotel executive convinced Bergeron to open his first franchise location in Seattle. This is originally a small bar called the Outrigger, but expanded to a full restaurant in 1954 and renamed Trader Vic's in 1960. It was from the small start with this one bar that Trader Vic spread to a number of hotel locations across the U.S. In 1950, Bergeron opened a location in Hawaii, and in 1951, a location in San Francisco. Trader Vic eventually partnered with Hilton Hotels and opened the first Trader Vic's in the Beverly Hilton in 1955. The second was in Chicago's Palmer House. At this point, Trader Vic licensed the brand for use throughout the chain for $2 million. He did, however, keep the ability to oversee decorations, staffing, and operations of these restaurants for an annual salary of just $65,000.
In what year?
1950.
Yeah, which is not
actually maybe 55.
55.
Yeah. I was gonna say originally, I was like, man, that's something must know. It's like, adjusted for inflation.
Yeah,
he knocked that deal out of the park.
Especially with the $2 million up front.
Right. Yeah. Seeing the success that the tiki-style Trader Vic's restaurant was having in Hilton Hotels, Sheraton Hotels opened up chains of their own tiki restaurants known as Portugal and Kontiki. This was the 1950s, and tiki was becoming a huge fad across the United States. During that time, over 25 Trader Vic's restaurants were in operation worldwide. This trend was fueled by the GIs coming home from their tour of duty in the South Pacific Theater. A book was written about the experiences there called Tales of the South Pacific, played into the country's love for the exotic, and spun off into a hit musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein and a 1958 movie, both titled South Pacific. Those who came home from the war were searching for more of that exotic place they thought back on so fondly. Trader Vic restaurants were a point of American pop culture for these people. The crab rangoon was invented at this restaurant. Even the Queen of England visited and had her first meal not prepared by her own personal chefs at the San Francisco location in the 1980s. Tiki was certainly a craze. The stuffy ballrooms of big bands and black ties were supplemented with laid-back attitude, printed shirts, and loose I don't know if that Moors. The 50s and 60s were the heyday of tiki. In 1959, when Hawaii became a
State.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
It was a country. Ceased to become a country.
Yeah. When it became a state, Americans flocked to the new and exotic place that had suddenly become more accessible.
So
when they returned, sorry.
I was just going to say, we were discussing how much money he was getting out of this 1955 money. You want to know how much that $2 million was in today's money?
Like 10.
Jeff Bezos bucks.
$22,609 and $438.20
Oh, up front.
up front.
Okay.
It's a licensing fee.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I do remember reading somewhere along the lines that the restaurants would make, like collectively they would make, so they paid $2 million up front. Yearly they would make $7 million.
Yeah, I was going to say like the actual amount difference, that's kind of like in the long run pocket change.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to keep the restaurant, 70 million to 2 million.
Yeah.
Which is a lot if you took that dollar amount, because you're looking at 140 million with that multiplication.
I mean, at the end of the day, well done on on the deals.
It's a
Sorry, I was
$500,000 a day in sales.
Sorry, I was on one of my favorite sites, the inflation calculator. I've spent a shocking amount of time in my life on an inflation calculator.
We're living the inflation calculator.
It can't keep up.
Well, when they returned, it wasn't the true culture of Hawaii that came back with tales of. It was the tiki bar, which stood out as being authentic, with the colonial homes that were built before statehood looked just like those in the rest of the U.S.
That authentic needs some very heavy, bold quotation marks around it.
Yeah.
So there is a, and it may be anecdotal, but in one of the sources that I looked at, it actually said that when Don the Beachcomber went to Hawaii and opened his first restaurant there, it was the first thatch roof building that had been built since colonial time, like the colonial times had started.
Wow.
Like major building, not like,
Since-
home or whatever, but
Since Dole came in and said, "This is our land now."
yeah, more or less. Yep.
Also, that colonial time is not nearly as long back as you think it is.
Oh no, it's not. I'm thinking like 50 years prior or whatever.
Yeah.
Tying all this, I could get into a whole separate conversation, like side conversation, on how aiding in this weird cultural appropriation you had from the initial. It makes me think like part of what caused the initial craze into this, the one that we didn't think of, was the Margaret Mead study into the Polynesian peoples, where they were literally screwing with her. She was a cultural anthropologist, and she like embedded herself with the culture. She was like a young woman in her 20s and went down there, and basically all the young women there were like, "We're just gonna F with her the whole time, right?"
I mean, in fairness, there's no way if
Fed her crap, and they just like kept making stuff up on the fly, and she just wrote it all down and published all these papers and books based off of all the blatant lies they were telling her. And she's just like feeding it back to the American press, and everyone's eating it up. And they're like, oh, they live this like great free sex culture down there, and all blah, 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 blah. And it's a utopia where everyone's screwing everyone, and they're just giggling. A
It's
bunch of
basically-
teenage girls giggling, telling her crap.
It's basically what they did to Barbara Walters when she came to East Kentucky.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
And that's the other like aspect that's also happening during this exact same time, 50s to 60s, tiki craze going on. There's a lot of like free love going on. That's part of this, but there's some of this like, okay, you've got your hula girl. Oh, she's so exotic and everything. She just made me do it. And you've got your fire dancer man, like that's in a lot of the luau type things that are going on starting in Hawaii at this time. That's like, oh, that guy, he was just so exotic. And so like
So exotic.
this idea of going native, quote unquote, is kind of from this sexualized freedom of, well, we can go in, have a drink that's way too strong, make some bad decisions, but at the end of the day, I have somebody else that I can blame.
It's the American way.
Yeah, it really. Yeah. Yeah. So, the Hawaiian statehood kind of a major factor in the popularity of the tropical lifestyle, somewhat what we've just talked about, but also changed how tiki culture was perceived. Hawaii was no longer just a foreign country to the American people in reality, or as imagined, but now a formalized part of their country. Tourism continued ever bigger growth, with the years after statehood becoming a quote jet rush for vacationers, snapping up $100 tickets for a now only 5-hour flight from LA or San Francisco, without the former restrictions of the former territory of Hawaii. With statehood making travel easier than ever for many average Americans, for the first time, the myth of what Hawaii was and what it was supposed to be came face to face as a booming economy and urbanization began to change the lifestyle of its countryside.
$100 airplane ticket now is the same as $1,040.81.
I think it was cheaper to fly then. I know from the East Coast, because one of those, hey, wouldn't it be nice if you look at a ticket from like Cincinnati to Hawaii and it's like $2,000 a person.
Ugh.
Like,
Well, it came back up recently in like one of those bad articles, but it was when was it American? Like whenever an airline sold lifetime, it was a lifetime ticket,
JetBlue,
and it was for like $25,000, and you could fly for the rest of your life. It was a lifetime ticket. You could fly as much as you wanted, no restrictions.
it was a lot. I remember it being like $100,000. It was a lot, like $100,000. But you could add on a companion ticket for like 50.
Yes, for like half, you could add a companion.
And it was like, well, I'll let you continue. But it was bad decisions.
Yeah, because they said everyone who took them up on this offer, in reality, what it cost the airline was over $2 million per ticket that they sold like this, because they thought, it's this sum of money. Hardly anyone's going to take us up on this because it's so much, and we'll just come out because these people can't possibly fly that much. And it was like, oh no.
Oh, I'll fly. It's the only way I'm traveling now.
They should have known and that is exactly. I remember the story probably that came out shortly after this whole thing, was released. It was like there was a guy and his wife who would fly to other cities in the U.S. just to have dinner and fly back.
Yep, because it's free.
Like just because they could. Oh, hey, honey, you want to go to Chicago tonight and have pizza? Yeah, let's go do it.
Oh,
$32 pizza.
If I had that, yeah, they're like, oh, you have to wait this line. It's fine. I'm getting to Chicago for free.
But the average that it actually cost the airline $2 million.
I know.
Couple.
I'd fly because first of all, I'd have enough money to be able to pony that up to start with.
Yeah.
Sell the house and just fly. You can sleep on the airplane.
Sleep in the airplane or the movie theater when you're at the airport.
That's exactly right.
You're just taking the red eye constantly. You're like, oh well, it's getting close to evening. You're gonna have to book that red eye to LA.
Was it only domestic flights?
Yes, I believe
Okay.
it was.
Yeah,
Still,
but
Because
yeah.
if it was international, that'd be one of those like that's an easy way to get a good night's sleep in.
Oh yeah. Oh, we're going to New Zealand. I'm gonna get a good day and a half of sleep.
But it was nobody buys that ticket unless they've done the math to say this is a good investment.
Yep.
And you've got these businessmen who would be able to, and women probably, not to be sexist, but I just feel like this type of
Yeah.
crappy attitude would go more towards the men.
Mm.
But they would look at it and say, okay, I'm going to go to my next job and say, this is a job where I'm on the road 30 weeks out of the year, and you've got to fly me everywhere. I'm
That-
bringing to the table a free ticket.
That's what I thought of first. That said, can you imagine the first date flex?
Yeah.
Just pop up. No, it's fine. We're gonna go eat somewhere tonight. Somewhere today. Where are we going? Hawaii. Get in the plane. Don't worry, we'll go back.
You could do it cheaply too. So
Yes,
if you lived in LA or something, you'd be like, "Oh, let's go out and get something tonight. Let's go get some dogs." And they're like, "Huh?" And then you take them to Chicago to get like Chicago dogs or something. They're like, "What the hell?" You're like, "We're here getting, like $1.50 hot dogs on a street corner." And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's Chicago. It's like you go to New York for the pizza. You go to Chicago. Well, you go to Chicago
for other pizza.
but street pizza, you go to New York.
I'm just saying, like that just seems like it would be like it has a lot of complications around that as well, but also just like the flex of just be like, you just decide we're gonna hop on a plane. It's a hell of a first date story. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I also imagine if you could do that today, because I follow some people on like socials and whatnot that like are doing the digital nomad thing, and like that would actually like they literally don't have a house because it's sold everything and they're just traveling. And
How do they do taxes?
Living that old school Amtrekker life.
Essentially, yeah. I mean,
I may have my first Amtrak trip in July.
Well, it's been nice knowing you, Casey. You lived a good life.
It'll be a couple hours only, like just up and down the coast.
So
that's a 6-week trip.
That was something I started looking into and like getting into during the lockdowns. As I started, we're on a huge tangent here.
Mm-hmm.
It started with researching doing a train trip in Europe, and I was looking at Finland and doing the Santa Claus Express from Helsinki to Rovaniemi. And I was like, that looks so cool. Is there something like stateside wise? And I started looking at Amtrak trips, and it's like, holy crap, our train system is kneecapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I started watching like these YouTubers. That's all they do. They literally just YouTube their trips on trains. And I was just like, that's horse crap. I want to do that.
Amtrak Dan, I'm all over him. I want to do a Chicago to LA, maybe Chicago to San Diego even, and then come back through Texas.
All right. Mm-hmm. We need to get back on topic. I am enjoying this very much, but as a show, we have to get back on track.
We can get back on track, but I
want these train tracks.
I want to take the northern route. Is what I want to take. The one through the Dakotas, and that's the Amtrak route I want to go.
All right.
If Brittany wants to cut it, this is a good place.
I haven't even editing is a dream. Tomorrow's problem.
That's next week's problem.
Monday. I don't even know.
Let's go.
During America's honeymoon, with the romanticized version of its newly incorporated state, came the 1959 Warner Brothers television series Hawaiian and the 1961 musical smash hit Blue Hawaii, featuring pop crooner Elvis Presley playing an Army veteran returning to Hawaii to surf, sing, and marry his girlfriends.
I could just see Elvis standing there, clearly on like just some platform, and the film reel of a wave behind him as he's just standing there
because the man was high out of his mind. It pumped him full of so many pills that he didn't care.
Mm-hmm. Look, the Colonel knew what made him happy.
Oh yeah, they knew all the spices.
It was
so these movies actually, this one with Elvis actually had a lot of the similar plot elements to the 1937's movie Waikiki Wedding, and helped to actually bring Polynesian pop aspect to a new generation. It's almost like the remake of Star Wars. Um, this addition came as Tiki Culture music had begun to split into separate subgenres with the addition of lounge and exotica in the 1950s, which at one point had amended the typical like Bing Crosby style of American Hawaiian music. The popularity of Elvis, nevertheless, helped to keep broad Tiki culture alive, even as adults began to take it into new directions and their children began to meld it into evolving subcultures such as the surf culture.
My correct reference bell went off, and I was like, I actually have the correct reference dinging in my head for that one.
And you're saying that, and I'm literally looking over, going like, I guess I had to go grab my ukulele.
So there's this very early movement away from big band also, where some of these artists are playing music on piano, but like mixing in some like, hey, I'm going to make sounds like a frog or a monkey in a tree and into this piano music. And it's like, what would South Pacific music sound like? It was written on Western instruments is kind of what they were going for with it. They say this is not South Pacific music. This is not Polynesian music. This is an interpretation of that specifically.
It's a whitewashing of it.
You know, it's its own thing. But Tiki was heading for a decline. Not only was there a natural progression that pop culture takes, where it's no longer new and hip thing to do, but there was another war brewing in the South Pacific again, and a new generation was seeing the globe. They began to see Tiki as being insincere and inauthentic. Those who were in the boomer generation didn't care for the kitschy look. These were the bars their parents frequented, not theirs, and the fall from favor was coming.
Failures are your own, old man.
Very much. The great times had by GIs in World War II in the Pacific Theater were not the same as those fighting in the trenches of Korea and then Vietnam. Tiki was a reminder of the atrocities on these cultures. Now that we had Hawaii, Tiki didn't feel as special anymore. Why go to the knockoff Tiki bar when you could experience the island yourself? Tiki drinks were also seen watered down. The 1934 original zombie had around 17 ingredients. By the time we get to the 1970s version being served in Hawaii, it was downgraded to just 8 ingredients, most of which were not in the original version. A tiki drink used to be special and exotic, but by the 1970s, it was more of an orange and pineapple mixed with rum that didn't have the same complexity or balance to it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Many of in fact, the traditional Mai Tai that we have across most bars in the U.S. right now is a version from a Hawaiian hotel bar that everybody just drank and then brought back with them.
PHs are just off the scale at this point. Let's just be straight with our story. Like everyone's got the chemistry all wrong in these drinks.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's partly to blame for Don and Sonny in their first restaurant because they intentionally obscured what the restaurants were making. And so every bar that was doing this obscured their own blends because it was so, it's like the Coke recipe. If you got it, you wouldn't put it online. You'd try to make Coke yourself. And so
you gotta make sure you're the only place in the city that can get this drink.
Yeah.
And those herbs and spices.
And one of the YouTubers out there that I watched in recording this, they're like, hey, there was this bar that made this one drink and I really enjoyed it. And I would drive the 20 or 30 minutes, whatever it was, to this bar to have this one drink because it was that good. And he said, but one day I just asked the bartender, how do you make it? And they told me how they made it. And I've never been back to that bar since. Like they can make it at home. So the secrecy is part of the allure. And so whenever you get this transfer of it comes from here to there, it's going to change every single time, like playing a game of telephone. Many of the Don the Beachcomber during this time and Trader Vic restaurants were actually being closed. And notably, when Donald Trump bought the Plaza Hotel in 1988, one of the first changes he made was to remove the Trader Vic's restaurant in it, saying that it was tacky and did not fit with the image of the hotel.
Let's point out again that Batman said something was tacky.
With that gold inlay on the outside of his hotels. He has no right.
Gold toilets.
It looks like the 1980s. So, while the public facing tiki establishments really began to fade away, home enthusiasts and devotees of the tiki culture began to slowly build their homes into tiki palaces. You would see like apartment buildings that would build these tiki or have tiki bars in the back, and they would start to restore them because that was at the heyday when the apartment building was first built. But it kind of went out of favor, and so they'd start to return those like private spaces where you could invite people over. They return those to a little bit more use. Um,
I want to say there's another resurgence in it happening right now.
there's something there. So backyards turned into tiki bars for businessmen and women who wanted a little eclectic and exotic flair when they got home from work or to entertain on the weekends. In larger cities, these tiki fans would travel to each other's homes and share memorabilia of tiki's heyday. They'd trade mugs, they gathered from now defunct restaurants. The craze was really there, but it was like really quiet in the subculture, and there were like they passed around zines and newsletters a little bit, but it wasn't a lot. It was just like these small pockets of tiki that knew about each other, but didn't really have a huge national organization.
Man, fanzines I find endlessly fascinating just for the idea of a proto like message board internet thing that it's the way they would get that stuff out, and you're just like, how are the margins working out that this is worth your time?
Yeah.
6 people all paid $30.
More of a labor of love than
I mean, yeah, in fairness, I kind of understand that, but also like
here we sit.
Right, that's what I mean. but also like the printing cost just seems absurd.
Here we sit.
Fair.
Netting nothing.
Well, okay, I read that part. Towards the end of the century, we saw a renewed interest in trying to authentically recreate older drinks. Again, we had moved away, like lots of pineapple, lots of these other ingredients that wouldn't have been in that original drink. We get somebody like Jeff, the Beach Bum Berry, who releases several drink books starting in 1998. The Grog Log, Intoxica, and many others. That
Toxic. Intoxipedia. Come on.
Intoxipedia.
I need it.
These contained the researched recipes from many of the signature drinks from the sometimes shuttered bars of previous decades. Like, if I'm not mistaken, this one is where he actually goes back and finds bartender logs where they've written things down and tries to cipher through them in order to see what was going on. This was also the beginning of the urban archaeology aspects of the 21st century tiki culture, based on historical interest and fueled by the puzzle solving of trying to discover secrets from the past from a cultural theme that was based in part on the exploration of tropical regions. Even today, we have these people that'll go in, and as one of these tiki bars is closing, they'll go in and document it just to have that knowledge preserved. So once we get the internet, you get bulletin board systems that allowed those with niche interests to really trade talk online. And then the culture of tiki started with another resurgence. It was more than just the drinks, it was more about the art, the fashion, the community of collectors sharing a common goal to preserve this Polynesian pop culture. There were tiki conferences and bar crawls. The Book of Tiki, a guide to the urban archaeologist, was published in 2000, which became really the Bible of tiki culture and drew more into its world. So now it's not as disparate. Like, you could get this book and really be indoctrinated into the inner sanctum of tiki, all the things and all the people you really need to know about. There was a generation here who saw tiki as a new way saw it in a new way without the same level of cultural appropriation. They weren't expecting tiki to be something authentic. They didn't expect this to be a true Hawaiian culture. All they knew was that it was a kind of culture of its own from the early, I guess, 20th century. And they were just trying to recreate that aspect of it, not what came before that. These people weren't expecting it to be authentic. They knew it was its own kind of culture and something uniquely American.
It's so I want to say this is where we could say we've stumbled into the story.
Yeah,
And this
me.
as a throwback to the second wave of Tiki is kind of where we came in and have ever done anything with Tiki. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a Tiki party. It's like because we're kind of basing it off of the second wave of Tiki with the knowing lens that none of this is authentic.
Right, exactly. So I remember watching, and Bob probably does too, because it was around the same time we were in college together. The Dr. Tiki shows.
I was literally trying to think of the name of the show.
Yep.
And I was like, I was Googling it while you were talking, going, maybe I can find the name of this thing.
Oh.
I know it was back on a podcast. I'm looking on like websites trying to find it.
Tiki Bar TV.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dr. Tiki, Johnny, and Lala were the main cast. There were some others there. Drinkbot was in there. I remember that one. There were a lot of these secondary characters, but it was a Tiki themed show that not only showed here's the Tiki drink, but also wore the same outfits and had the same sort of kitschy bars that traditional Tiki bar would have. And this was one of the earliest web series or video podcasts that were out there. There was a new cohort of restaurants that actually began to reopen in the early 2000s. Forbidden Island and Smuggler's Cove in California. You had 3 Dots and a Dash that opened in Chicago, and Haley Paley in Portland. They all saw this new tiki craze emerging and started up restaurants based on it. Hot rodders and tattoo artists started bringing tiki into their work, while rum brands pulled in aspects of the subculture, such as the Sailor Jerry's rum using the tattoo hula girl on the label. Disney got into the act with 2009 opening Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar at Disneyland and Trader Sam's Grog Grotto in the Polynesian Village at Disney World in 2015. Like,
sorry, I'm thinking of Trader Sam's Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Trader Sam's a big thing, and spoiler, we've not made it a secret that there's Have Drinks going to Disney, but
we've reached that point in our seasons where you got to do the episode at Disney, like Full House or whatever. I don't know.
Yes,
yeah, pretty much. But we're gonna
Full
try
House Step by Step. Did they do a crossover at Disney?
Maybe
or just both did the same thing. I can't remember which.
A 3-part episode.
Boy Meets World went
Pre-show, we were looking up the specialty tiki mugs that you could currently get at Trader Sam's because we're all pretty excited to be trying to get reservations. It's not, you can't make them online. You just have to like show up hours before because it's a tiny little bar and you've got to show up hours before and stand in line and hope you can get a reservation.
It's an hour-long show that seats 40 people at a time, and it's in Disney, and you get drunk.
They have tiki mugs that are $4.6 billion per mug.
Pretty much.
Roughly.
I mean, there's a specialty
That's a Star Wars
$80 Halloween one, or halfway to Halloween, gargoyle tiki mug currently.
Like, wait, by gargoyle, do we mean...
It looks
not
like
from the show.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say like a Brooklyn, Lexington, Goliath kind of gargoyle, or a...
Looks like a gargoyle on the Haunted Mansion building.
The other option I was going to say was Hunchback of Notre Dame. I wasn't going to go with any of the rides that are in Disney.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah,
that's where terror lives. You don't go on their experiences. They're there to terrify you and ruin your childhood.
Still bitter about it today. I mean, Disney's been in this. They kind of rode the wave the first and second time. So Disney had the Polynesian Village, which is very much a tiki-esque read on Polynesia.
Because Walt lived the first.
He did.
The initial one, and then when the second one came around was when he was building theme parks and was like, "Yo, dog." I remember.
He said, "Annette Funicello, I need you in more movies."
He said, "Yo, dog." I remember this the first time around. We can make some bank.
Yep. So you got the Polynesia Village, and then if it hadn't been such a huge project, I would suspect that hotel probably would have went away in the past 25, 30 years. But because it's hard, it's easy to close a restaurant. Like, you just sell off the equipment. There it is. It's a building and a bunch of stuff. Selling a Disney vacation property hotel, not nearly, or renovating, not nearly the same.
It's ultra themed.
Yeah.
It is mega themed.
Like, down to the architecture in the walls.
There's no you can't wash, you can't just throw another color paint on it and be like, oh, now it's Bavarian. It's like no.
Yeah. So I feel like it would have went away, but because it's there, it made sense to come back and have, okay, now that Tiki's starting to have this comeback, let's make another like investment into this. Let's lean into it a little bit more, which is where you get these new additions. I did not realize they were so new, with the tiki bars built at the actual hotels.
And in my head, I'm just hearing Moana. Make way.
Maybe they're just making movies now to save their own properties.
I have always suspected that.
Oh, well, I meant like the hotels. I know for sure, like the actual theme park.
The
If only they made, if only they were making like movies based on rides that
Yeah.
existed at the theme parks.
Well, whenever I realized that Disney Channel was, what was the movie that they were getting ready to come out with?
Xenon and the Girl from the 23rd Century.
It was Pixar, or no, Finding Nemo.
Those movies.
It was Finding Nemo. Was Finding Nemo always
That's
originally from
Pixar.
Disney?
Yeah.
That was.
Okay.
Right.
It was after they bought Pixar.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Disney Channel ran for 2 years prior to Finding Nemo coming out. They ran aquatic educational series
Yep.
on Disney Channel
Yeah.
just to get people's interest peaked to the new movie that was going to come out 2 years down the road.
You, sir, have been watching too much Defunctland. That's where I got that knowledge. So I know that's where you got that knowledge.
Yeah.
Because they did a whole episode on so it was on the Disney Channel
Logo.
the chime.
Oh yeah, the interstitial.
The interstitial. And then he does a whole segment on the wand identification thing and goes into he just goes deep dive into Disney Channel. It's all this random crap you never thought you'd care about. And then by the end of it, you're crying about a composer that you never gave two shits about.
Yeah.
And he wrote a 4-note jingle. And then at the end of this, because the guy behind Defunctland's a genius and has you crying over this man's life and career. And you're just like, what have I become?
That's very much it.
All right. Let's bring this home.
So eventually cocktail cultures had begun to grow up a bit more. No more was the simple rum and pineapple enough for a great bartender to call himself or herself a great bartender. Competitions and the craft cocktail movement embraced tiki's complexity and balance. They moved beyond the classic rums and gins into tiki drinks made with bourbons and other liquors. The culture of tiki may be in its third resurgence today as Americans seek more experience with the drinks and nostalgia of a bygone era, and that starts to become exotic once more.
Needed to go full Morgan Freeman with the ending of that. Like, culture of tiki maybe at the third resurgence today as Americans seek more.
You're saying this, and all I can see in my head is the video of the guy with the jug of orange juice that's cut like 2/3, and it's almost half full of orange juice, upending the bottle of vodka onto the top of it, and then just like chugging that. I'm just like, yes, the sophistication.
I do not know what you speak of, but wow.
Like he sucks it down, and you're just like, my God, how's this man not dead?
So not to kind of put a pin on what my life's kind of like when the kids aren't home.
A lot of alcohol.
No. The kids are home. Well, they're not home then.
They're not home today.
They're at the movies. That's when there's also a lot of alcohol.
So at one point today, I was being so lazy and so like just I don't even want to think that I was
Eddie a beer.
It was after I wrote the episode. It was done. Like I just had it over, done, and everything. Not worrying about anything else. Just wanted to mentally relax. I watched about 45 minutes of a live stream of just a liquor store cashier. It was almost like security cam footage.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not a live stream. That's just security cam footage of
like the guy, like he has a YouTube channel and everything. But today he was trying something new. It was just a live stream of him selling liquor. And the reason this comes up, there's a story behind this. It goes into Chris's, orange drink here. There was a girl that sounded, this is on Gainesville, Florida Gators campus. This is a liquor store on their campus.
Gainesville, Rock City.
Yeah. And so, it was like some small college girl that came in just by the tone of voice and where they are located. Comes in, a handle, like 1.75 liters of vodka and 120-ounce lemonade.
Good
and that's
Lord.
her order. Like, woo, she's getting wrecked tonight.
Did he do it?
You don't know what she just went through.
DIY Smirnoff.
I'm just saying, anybody with a liter and a half of Smirnoff ain't going through anything good in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, no.
Like, is she sharing that? Why didn't she get drinks for her friends too that weren't alcoholic mixers? Like, there's questions.
There are questions.
I could adopt this habit now of watching liquor store security camera feeds and trying to decode what's about to unfold in someone's life.
If you enjoy people watching, where you don't see the people, but you only see what liquor they have put on the counter, you might like the channel.
It's like watching Cops, essentially, except more of you can build more of a backstory.
It's the Cops prequel.
Speaking of the Cops prequel, let's get into what we're drinking.
Sparkling Muscatel, one of the finest wines of Idaho. Would you taste it for us, please? Oh. Excellent choice. Should be for 95 cents.
I'll never get over. I can just see his short shorts.
Oh God. So, Chris, Brittany, what are you all sharing?
She's got the bottle of what we started with.
It's 1.75 liters and a lemonade.
A handle of vodka, a pink lemonade. You got to read it.
Oh, yes.
I was just trying to show the bottle.
Listeners at home.
Coconut caramel apple brandy Demogorgon.
I cracked into one of those not that long ago, and fucking shit.
That was like
the Demogorgon part, for those who aren't aware. This is from a local brewery in Cincinnati, and imperial stout aged in apple brandy barrels. Delicious.
And I'll never get over. So their first coconut stout they did, the brewers had never worked with coconut before, so they absolutely all they knew is that coconut has a tendency to be underrepresented. You got to put a lot more than you intend. Well, they went kind of hog wild with this idea, unintentional. Like they was like, okay, we got to put a crap ton of coconut. Well, they put so much coconut in there, it literally absorbed half the volume of the liquid they intended in the end.
I've seen the other end of I've heard of the other end of that, where they've put in so much coconut it clogs up all of their drains, and they just spend hours shoulder deep in pipes just trying to pull out coconut.
So that's a rookie mistake.
It was several years back.
I may have made with coffee.
Uh-huh.
Now we know you just blend it. Like, don't leave the strands. They lock together like cement.
Will it blend?
If it's powdered, you can shoot that sucker out of there with pressure.
Okay.
I just see Casey now, like, little Timmy gets to drink from the fire.
I'll send you all a video later. Not me, but
okay, somewhat unrelated. I giant Weird Al fan. Never had the UHF album. Yeah, I know, I'm a monster. It popped up on the streaming app I was listening to, and like the one of the songs from it, and it was like one of the polka medleys, and I was like three songs in before I went, wait, this is all the Rolling Stones. I was expecting, like, because I'm used to like oh, here's a bunch of things, like, Oh no, this is all one band. This is amazing. Anyway,
No,
sorry.
if anyone ever throws shade at Al, I will
Oh, I'll
like their eyes and in their life. Like it's
Yeah.
just
there's
Also,
I will not have ill spoken of his weirdness in my presence.
yes. So what were the deets on our coconut apple brandy
Oh.
barrel monstrosity? It's like 2 years old, but
Still
it's
great.
still
That-
rocking all the flavor.
That thing held up. Like
Yeah.
it's within 2 months that I've had one of those.
Yeah, it's holding.
12.3%. Shocking. So flavors of bourbon, oak, dark chocolate, and vanilla. And then yeah. Then it's just like fluffy talk after that.
Okay.
But yeah, so
All right.
so good.
Well, that couldn't hold me over. So to top that off, reaching in the fridge for some tasty leftovers, I had my final snorkel squad from Hop Butcher. It's a citra hopped India Pale Ale, as basically everything from Hop Butcher is.
I was just thinking of the idea of a renaming it the Indiana Pale Ale.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 6.5%. So nothing crazy. Bright. It was like mainly citra hopped. So yeah, it's all bright and citrus fruity. What we're all accustomed to. I want to throw shade real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Britain, for our Bob looks around like, what shade? As for our escalator drinks today, Brittany got what was it called?
Oh god. Something about last night was hazy or something.
Last night's
hazy
a little hazy.
from Wooden Cask.
A hazy IPA that was clearer than any, like it was like a Kolsch.
I was gonna say like
And like more bitter than it ever should have been.
And I was just like stared at the bartender after she gave it. I was like, this is the hazy, correct? And she's like, yeah. And I looked, I held it up so she could see what I'm seeing. I'm like, this is crystal clear. She goes, yeah. And I'm just like, okay, it's just so that we're all on the same page.
I mean,
here is called like
that
a little hazy.
that part of that feels to be like bartender error.
Yeah, I think it was.
That's what I was trying to point out to her, and she wasn't getting what I was laying down. So it's like, you have no business working this bar.
I say that because we've had a lot from Wooden Cask.
Yeah.
I can't imagine them like trying to do a hazy and still not having it turn out hazy.
Also
No, I think I've had it before too, is the thing.
And then after that, while Brittany and Emmett were riding the choo-choo train, I had to give a brief bourbon TED talk because some people at a bar were floundering trying to decide what the difference between bourbon and whiskey is because they were certain they were two different things.
Oh dear.
And I could not handle it. I had to step in.
Do you walk up to them, like interlace your fingers, pop all your knuckles, and then like do like the neck pop, like one head to head turned to one side, like, all right, let me educate you dumb hicks.
As a full asshole, walk up with a beer in hand. Already
Actually,
mid sip, so I can't start with actually. So I'm like, hand it, finish my drink. Actually,
yeah,
and open with the line that's forever cemented. All bourbon is whiskey, not all whiskey is bourbon.
All bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is lucky enough to be bourbon.
And they look at me with that look. They go, who the fuck asked you? And that's when I'm like, me, when you all couldn't decide what the difference is.
I remember sitting beside someone.
It's just
And,
like corn's the difference.
So
Yes.
remind me, I've got two thoughts afterwards. We should move.
Where are we moving to?
All right. To you, Bob.
Oh, okay. I made a cocktail tonight. I went out, picked up a little bit of lime juice, some ginger beer, because I was making a dark and stormy tonight. Didn't have a proper super dark rum for this, but some spiced rum will cut it in a pinch. I'm
I thought
fine.
you took Casey's advice in our chat.
No, I can't afford a Stormy Daniels
I
or
mean,
dark,
you-
whatever it was.
oh yeah, Stormy Daniels.
That's it. Yeah, that was.
You already had the ingredients.
I did. But I wouldn't be able to talk about it. I'd have to spend too much money hushing it up.
Shouldn't that? There's got to be to rename it. Shouldn't it be like Goldschlager and Jack Daniels to make it the Trump Stormy Daniels? Because you got to add the like tacky amount of gold.
I was going to say the golden shower for Russian prostitute. Never mind.
All of it. It's just no politics show.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no. This was nice. Gave me an excuse to buy a bunch of ginger beer. Because I like just having that just kind of around. But yeah, this was tasty. Like in our little breakdowns, like strength. I don't know. Follow your heart. This one's actually 2.5 ounces I poured into this because my glass is a little bigger than designed. So I'm like, yeah, screw it.
Great.
Sorry, I'm currently making a snowman out of glassware.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah,
I
that was
do.
my- I will also say I grabbed some seltzer from Trillium that's been in my fridge for a long time today, which is still fine.
Nice.
So
It complemented this really well because it was like a minty, citrusy kind of, not minty, but a citrusy kind of like seltzer. So
I mean, if you get an alcoholic seltzer, they're basically you're assembling into RTD territory.
Yeah, it's almost that. Yeah,
the worst that's
Add
going
some
to happen
sugar.
is it loses carbonation.
yeah. That's why I was kind of like I looked at the date and I was like, oh, this is old, but yeah, screw it.
I just had like the IPA I had is like 6 months plus old, and it was fine, still juicy as hell and delicious. I'm just like, I've just had nothing but old beer recently, and I'm just like, this is still just fine.
Yeah.
Like nothing wrong. Okay, Casey,
What
what's
you got?
rocking your socks?
I made the traditional 1934 zombie,
Ooh.
and it is a sock rocker for sure. So first off, this drink required a lot of research, not by me, but by Jeff Berry, the Beach Bum, in his 2007 book. That's the only way that we know what one of the mixers are in this, and it's called Don's Mix. So much of the rest of the recipe was known. It's 3/4 ounce of fresh lime juice, a 1/2 ounce of falernum, 1.5 ounces of golden Puerto Rican rum, 1.5 ounces of dark Jamaican rum, an ounce of 151 proof rum, a dash of Angostura bitters, 1/8 of a teaspoon of absinthe, teaspoon of grenadine, and then crushed ice. It's a lot. It's a big tiki drink. Like,
Yeah.
there's complexity to it. The Dawn mix, that one's the one that they would have, like, it would just be listed as mix 2 in the book or whatever it was. So through a lot of trial and error over probably 15 to 20 years at least, they found out it's grapefruit juice and a cinnamon infused syrup. And those two items added to this is like, it's just a 1/2 ounce of it, but it adds such a cool rounded bitterness to it that you don't necessarily get just from the absinthe or the bitters. So the drink is extremely boozy, but extremely balanced because you don't taste the booze at all. It's not overly sour. It's not sweet. It's one of those that you could sit down and have like 15, but it's also a drink that I have had 2 today and the equivalent of over a 1/2 a bottle of liquor in 2 drinks, because there's 5 ounces of actual liquor. If you took this to vodka strength, you'd be at 5.5 ounces of liquor with that 151 in there. And so it's a lot.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's that.
All right.
So
Okay.
I wrote the episode today with sources from Smuggler's Cove by Martin Cade, wiki articles. There's movies that are getting ready to come, or at least one movie about Dawn the Beachcomber that's getting ready to come out. That's been really like it got me a lot of places that I could go find the cool, interesting tidbits.
2024's Beach, starring Anthony Brody as Don the Beachcomber.
It's really like it was a Kickstarter type of campaign to get this movie going. They raised a lot of money to do it. It got funded almost instantly. Like this movie is going to be really good. It's a documentary about Don the Beachcomber and his life. So we'll know a lot more at that point. They're doing the interviews with people, live interviews. But of course, Don passed away,
90 years ago.
He lived a long life. I mean, this guy, if you had a hedonistic lifestyle, he was there. Like Playboy was hosting parties with his style. Like that's kind of the way it goes.
I was going to say, if you factor in his lifestyle, that man lived to be 4,622 years old.
He always was seen in like this. It was a suit, but it was like the plantation. Open neck all the way down to like the belly type of thing going on, like
literally kind of what I'm rocking at the moment.
Yeah,
hotter in here. Some more and more buttons have been popping.
White linen, like very much that sort of look and feel. He was also a guy that was really like into not only taking it, appropriating this culture, but later on in his life, he was there to kind of give back and be like, no, I'm really trying to respect you and your culture at that point. Cat's out of the bag, but I mean, it's there.
I caused some damage, but let me try to make good.
Yeah, like, he becomes a notable celebrity. But in his interviews, he is not pictured usually. It's like audio recordings of him. And so they are doing claymation for him. Like, what's the one with like?
Please tell me Rankin and Bass did the claymation of it.
No, it's much more like
Wallace and Gromit.
Wallace and Gromit style.
Aardman Studio.
Very like rounded and.
Or I'll tell you what's even more appropriate. What's the Celebrity Deathmatch?
Yes,
that is the exact style. So
this corner we've got Don the Beachcomber Beach, and this corner we've got something Vicks. Let's get it on.
So
the same style that was in like the Harold and Kumar Christmas special.
Yes.
When
you had a giant like 90-foot clay penis taking out everything.
Can I also say, because I feel like this is something that I didn't even mention in the write-up. Trader Vic had a wooden leg, and like this was before his time in the bartending industry or the industry. But when he became, Trader Vic and had this whole persona and everything, he'd actually let people stab in his wooden leg on a slow night just because, like. Sure. He's a little bit of a weird character. Like I could see him on a Celebrity Deathmatch.
I will say, if I had like that kind of wooden leg, I would just be very angry at a moment and just say, "I can't take it anymore." And I just jam a knife into the wooden leg and just leave it sitting there like sticking up, going, I feel better.
Don't you do it! Don't you stick that knife in your leg! Or would you do Adam Sandler with the
frostbite thing?
Yeah, the frostbite when he gets John Turturro
and Mr. Deeds.
Take the fireplace poker and jab his wicked
frostbitten.
The foot will haunt me for the rest of my days.
Chop that wood. Yeah.
Oh, you're sick. Why would you do that? No, I'm just kidding. I can't feel it. All right.
Well, if you liked or don't like what you're hearing today, you can still subscribe and get some great resources at haveadrinkshow.com. Follow us at Have a Drink Show on social media and twitch.tv. Now, YouTube.
Yeah, we actually just saw our stuff go live the other day and was like surprised.
Haven't posted anything there in quite a while.
Years.
Editing videos suck, you guys.
Like the only problem I have about our YouTube channel is that the video that it always chooses to show me first is the one where we're in Utah at the
Yes.
top of this mountain, and my belly has blown up like a balloon on the inside.
We are.
Oh,
And I look so bloated, like I'm going to float away in the
all
balloon
of
from up.
the bloat is real. You did the science experiment when we rode the tram up.
Oh yeah,
Like it was an empty of liquid but full of air bottle as we keep riding the tram up, and it starts compressing in on itself.
yeah.
Well, if you have questions about that bottle, or the episode, or anything,
Hit with the bottle.
life questions, need advice, we're qualified to not give you anything, but we'll try. Tell us your favorite drink, ask a question, or just leave some general feedback. You can use the email address feedback@haveadrinkshow.com, or you can use the feedback page on the website, or look deep into a mirror, the dark of night, and say 3 times, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. Casey will be there with a bottle of some sort of alcohol. Be like, all right, buddy, let's get this going.
In the post show, I was thinking, what would our tiki names be? So in the post show, we need to discuss
Oh,
this.
okay.
Mm.
All joking fun aside, I'd like to remind everyone, please drink responsibly.
Limit of 2 zombies, just like Don the Beachcomber said.
Dude.
Drink. It's a mix of Ernest Hemingway and Don the Beachcomber. Drink drink 3 zombies slowly over the afternoon.
Yes. Well, you can check us out. Check out the next episode in another couple of weeks. And remember to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/haveadrinkshow, and also haveadrinkstore.com. Once again, I'm Brittany Lee Walker.
I'm Justin Frazier.
I'm Christopher Walker.
And I'm Casey Price. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
If you could make a tiki design for shirts, like a
Oh,